Yes, the need is urgent indeed. We're talking about fighting climate change. Welcome back, 746, and so pleased to be joined once again by longtime environmental activist Tzeporah Berman. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Now, you've just received some much-needed funding, over $2 million from the Climate Breakthrough Project. You were making headlines last week. Tell us about this group and where this money is going to go.
Well, the Climate Breakthrough Project is an international project, so it's philanthropic foundations from all over the world who have come together and said, every year, let's search for one or two people around the world who are doing new strategies to fight climate change. Because, you know, let's be frank, we've been trying for now 30 years, and emissions, carbon pollution, is still going up. And obviously climate change is getting worse. The fires in the Amazon this summer, the fires in the Arctic, the floods, increase in extreme weather. And so this project looks for what they say is entrepreneurs who are trying risky new strategies. And they interview apparently dozens of people who know you and work with you. And then they give you the funding not for a particular strategy, but for you to develop new strategies. And this year I was awarded the Climate Breakthrough Award.
Well, we congratulate you on that. It's great to see that some money is going to be put towards that good use. Talk to us about that classic misalignment right now, because it becomes a highly politicized issue when it comes to climate goals and then actual implementation of energy policies. And it's not just in Canada, right? There are many countries that have that disconnect.
No, it's all over the world. And in fact, that's what I plan to use the money for. What I started realizing over the last couple of years working on oil sands and pipelines here in Canada was that you can have a government that believes in climate change and wants to act, and they are responsible for reducing how much we burn, what our emissions or pollution are. And that's the way climate policy has been set up since Kyoto, since the first United Nations conferences. Each country is responsible for what we burn, and the negotiations are about how much space is left in the atmosphere, because carbon gets trapped in the atmosphere and kind of smothers the planet. The big loophole is that we don't yet have any regulations at a local level or international agreements about how much we produce. So countries like Canada are flooding the market with oil and gas, more fossil fuels than the world can safely burn. And in theory, if you reduce demand, you go to electric vehicles and you put a price on carbon, that will eventually regulate supply. But we're running out of time, and it's not working fast enough. So we need to regulate how much we produce and phase out the production of fossil fuels, as well as regulate how much you burn and what the pollution is. And so it's like supply and demand. And that's what I'm going to be looking at and trying to figure out. How do we create policy at a local level and international level so that we don't end up with, you know, saying we're fighting climate change and building more pipelines and expanding oil and gas?
I'm really glad you mentioned the local level, because, you know, it's one thing to have great sweeping federal or worldwide initiatives and policies, but it begins with people, with consumers. You know, I drove to work today. I probably use a lot more plastic than I should, and that's compounded. I mean, millions of people in our country. So what do you say about tackling it at the municipal or county level in some areas?
Well, first of all, there's the personal level. Yes, we all have to do our part, but if the laws change, it makes it easier. It makes quicker action overall. And so for years, people have been focusing on what are your federal governments doing? What are international agreements saying? But the fact is, most of our use of fossil fuels is in cities. So we started looking at what can cities do? What can counties do in the United States? And the fact is, municipal politicians are less kind of subject to the pressure from the oil and gas industry. Right. There's less funding in municipal elections than there are in federal elections. They're a little freer. So what we started doing...
grassroots.
Yeah. So what we started doing at Stand.Earth is talking to local governments and saying, well, you've committed to going 100% renewable, but what about the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure? What about gas for homes or new pipelines or the expansion of LNG terminals, you know, in your city? And most of the cities we're talking to are saying, yes, we want to phase that out. So we're looking at policies and land ordinances for safe cities to ban the expansion of fossil fuel infrastructure. Because if we want to get off fossil fuels, we can't just keep producing them and keep producing more infrastructure to use them. We actually have to phase it out. And we think it can really happen at a local level.
Amazing. We have to wrap there for time. I wish I had more, but you've been a tireless advocate for these issues and more over the years since I've known you, and just continue the fight there, I guess.
Thank you so much.
All right, Tzeporah Berman, and you can get information online at stand.earth, and we'll have more news of the day coming up. Stick around.